In the summer of 2020, my girlfriend and I went through a tough time. We had just gotten married a few months earlier, and because our wedding was expensive, we were struggling with money. This meant we could only afford a really cheap place to live, where we had to pay rent every week. Luckily, we found a place to stay in our city, a 3-story boarding house. It had 4 rooms, a shared kitchen, and a bathroom for everyone. We moved into a room on the 2nd floor. Since it was a boarding house, we had to share it with a few others. The most interesting ones were Mike and Michelle, a young couple in the room above us on the 3rd floor. During the 3 months we lived there, they were the only neighbors we talked to. We chatted with them occasionally on the front porch while having a cigarette. They seemed similar to us in age and interests. After a few weeks, we noticed that they didn't get along well. They would often argue, and sometimes we could hear them yelling at each other, or one of them leaving the house angrily late at night. The fights started small, but got longer and louder over time. One day, my wife and I were watching a movie while the usual arguments were happening upstairs. Surprisingly, right after the movie ended, the fighting suddenly stopped. It was nice to have some peace and quiet, but it was strange because they never just stopped arguing like that, especially at that late hour. Even though we agreed to go to sleep in the quiet, my wife woke me up in the middle of the night. She was shaking me and looking at something near our bed. I was really tired and confused. I didn't know the time or why she woke me up. I turned over to get up, and I saw a man standing by our bed. He was hunched over, going through our nightstand drawer. I couldn't believe it. When we locked eyes, he stood up and just stared at me. I sat up on the bed, and he started backing away slowly. I didn't know if it was real or just my imagination. When I turned on the room lamp, I saw it was our upstairs neighbor, Mike. He's the one who always yelled and kept us up late. I was a bit relieved, but I still wondered why he was going through our things while we were sleeping. It was really strange for him to do that. After I calmed down a bit, I asked Mike, "Hey, what's going on? Why are you in our room?" He didn't answer right away. After a short silence, he asked if he could borrow our car or if we could give him a ride somewhere. My wife, who was now wide awake, yelled at him, "No way," especially after breaking into our room at 3 in the morning. She warned him that if he didn't leave, she'd call the police. In response, Mike sprinted out of the room. But he didn't just leave the room. He ran out of the front door and down the street in a seemingly random direction. My wife and I looked at each other, realizing something was really wrong. We decided to go upstairs and check on Mike's girlfriend, Michelle. So that's what we did. We went upstairs and saw that the door to the room was closed, but not locked. I told my wife we should probably leave whoever was inside alone, but she disagreed. So, even though I didn't really want to, I knocked on the door and said hello. Nobody answered. We slowly opened the door, and what we saw was really scary. The room was a mess, like someone had gone crazy and hit everything with an axe. Then we saw Michelle lying on the floor face down. We thought maybe Mike had accidentally knocked her out, but as we got closer, we noticed there was fresh blood on the carpet under her. We got really scared and immediately called the police. We told them we thought there might have been a murder, but the person who did it had already left. The police told us to leave the room and wait outside. They came really quickly, in less than 5 minutes. We explained everything that happened, and the police started looking for the person named Mike. Luckily, they found him about an hour later, still running down the street. The police told us that it seemed like Mike was trying to find a gas station to get fuel. He wanted to burn down the house with Michelle's body inside to get rid of any proof that he did it. It was really scary, but the police stopped him in time. Mike was found guilty of killing his girlfriend. After that, my wife and I couldn't go outside because reporters kept bothering us for interviews. Then something surprising happened. A detective who was investigating Mike and Michelle for another case came to us with some shocking information. The detective thinks Mike was up to no good, doing some sneaky stuff. Michelle found out about his illegal actions. The detective believes that Mike, scared of getting caught, decided to make sure Michelle couldn't talk about it anymore permanently. The detective suggests that Mike might have help, someone else also doing bad things with him. As we found out this surprising news, the detective told us that he had been collecting proof against a secret partner. Michelle had unknowingly become a danger to both of them. The break-in was a way to make it look like Mike did it and distract everyone from the true person in charge. The police got new information and started looking into it more. They found out that when Mike ran out of our room that night, he wasn't just trying to get away, but he was actually trying to escape from the real person who did something wrong. The police were trying to find this other person, but they were tricky and managed to avoid getting caught for a while, making everyone confused and scared. For the next few days, we went through a lot of different feelings. We weren't just victims anymore, but we became witnesses to a complicated crime. As the police kept investigating, they made sure to keep us safe from any possible harm, so we were under their protection. Even though something really scary happened, good things happened in the end. They caught the person who helped in the bad thing, and both of them were accused of killing Michelle. The reason they did it, the hidden secrets, and the surprising turns of events made everything feel strange. After all the legal stuff finished, and the news excitement went away, my wife and I chose to leave the place we were staying at. The memories of that summer were scary, and we wanted to start over somewhere new, away from the reminders of what happened before. From now on, we worked on putting our lives back together, enjoying the little moments, and being grateful for the stability we now had. Our story took a surprising turn, teaching us that real life can be stranger than fiction. We learned that extraordinary things can happen in the most ordinary places. I was driving back from a big family party in another state. I booked a hotel for the first night, planning to finish the drive the next day. But the drive didn't go smoothly. The biggest problem was when the main highway was closed for construction. It was a real headache. I had to take a detour, adding a lot of extra miles to my trip, and I even got a little lost for a while. When the sun was going down, I was really tired. I still had 5 more hours to go, and all the delays made me frustrated and even more exhausted. I tried hard to stay awake and finish those last 5 hours, but the road seemed never ending. Then, I saw a sign for a motel about 20 miles away. I decided to stop there for the night and finish the drive tomorrow. When I got to the motel, there was only one other car in the parking lot. I thought it must belong to the person working at the motel. I went inside, and there was an old lady at the front counter who was busy talking on her phone. I asked for a room for tonight. The lady gave me a key, and I looked for my room. The building was small, with around 10 to 15 rooms. I walked to the second to last room, opened the door, and turned on the lights. The room was old-fashioned and a bit suspicious. I guess that's what you get in a remote place. I left all my stuff in the car, planning to take a nap, and then continue driving. I locked the door, and as I walked to the bed, heard a noise from the room next door, a door closing. It wasn't strange by itself, but since there were no other cars around, and the motel was in the middle of nowhere, it confused me for a moment. Then, I heard someone walking in the room next door, moving towards the wall we shared, and stopping right next to it. If their room was set up like mine, they were just standing against an empty wall. It was strange. Anyway, I turned off the lights and went to sleep. I suddenly woke up because someone knocked on my door. Feeling a bit nervous, I walked to the door and said, "Hello?" But when I opened it, no one was there. I went outside, checked the other doors, and looked at the parking lot, but it was all empty. I went back inside, feeling even more confused. I heard sounds from another room, like someone was moving things around or packing. I went back to bed, trying not to worry. I lay there for a while but couldn't fall asleep. About 30 minutes later, there was another knock. This time, I looked through the peephole and saw a woman standing outside. I opened the door, feeling a bit annoyed. "Can I help you?" "Why are you knocking so late?" I asked, a bit upset. She apologized and said she really needed my help with something in her room. She looked tired, and her eyes were red. She pointed to the door next to mine. I asked what she needed, but she just said,
"It's right here."
I wasn't sure what she meant, but I stepped out and looked around the corner. She went into the room, turned around, and looked like she was waiting for me to follow. It felt creepy and eerie in the silence as we stared at each other. I went back into my room, locked the door, and didn't say anything. I heard her knock on my door, asking for help again, but I ignored her. After about half a minute, I heard her go back to her room. Suddenly, two guys started arguing with her in her room. I didn't see them, so they must have been hiding. They yelled for about a minute. Then I heard the door open, and they all left. I called the police, but they took more than 30 minutes to arrive. And by then, the troublemakers were gone. The lady at the motel said she didn't check anyone else in that night, so those guys must have broken into the room. It seems like it was a setup, with the woman trying to lure me into the room, and then the two guys attacking. Who knows what could have happened? Every time I think about it, I realize how close I came to never being seen again. As I thought about how lucky I was to escape danger, something surprising happened. The lady who works at the motel, her name was Mrs. Thompson, shared some important information with the police. It turns out the woman who knocked on my door and her two partners had a sneaky plan. Mrs. Thompson explained that she hadn't checked in anyone else for the night, but there was more to the story. After the police investigated further, they discovered that the woman had rented the room next to mine using a fake name earlier that day. The two guys were hiding there, waiting for someone like me to fall into their trap. The woman's role was to trick me into entering their setup. If Mrs. Thompson hadn't figured out their plan, who knows what could have happened? I kept thinking about what happened. The woman asking for help, looking tired, and the strange knocking. Now I understand. She was trying to trick me into going into the room so her partners could attack me. It's scary to think how close I was to falling for their plan. Mrs. Thompson, the motel owner, looked worried. She suspected something was wrong when the woman checked in using a fake name, but she couldn't figure it out until I told her about the weird things happening. The motel owner acted quickly, but the police took too long, and the trio got away. I'm thankful for Mrs. Thompson keeping an eye out, but I still felt uneasy. What if she hadn't figured things out in time? What if I had walked into that room? The motel, which was just a quick stop on my journey, now felt creepy. I decided to keep going, but the scary incident stuck with me like a ghost. As days went by, the memory of the incident slowly faded away. I made it to my destination safely, but I couldn't forget how easily things could have gone wrong. Every twisty road and small town made me think twice, and every gas station and motel made me a bit more cautious. This experience made me change how I travel. Now, I don't just assume that any random motel is safe. I'm more careful and check reviews before choosing where to stay. The journey used to be just about covering distance, but now it's more about being aware and understanding that life on the road can be unpredictable. That night, in the isolated motel, taught me a valuable lesson. Not all unexpected events are harmless, and not everyone who knocks on your door is friendly. Traveling on the road requires caution, not just on the main roads, but also at seemingly regular stops where hidden dangers might be present. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. My name is Alex, and I'm 15 years old. Last summer, me, my girlfriend Amy, and my cool aunt decided to go camping. We planned this way before summer started, and we were all excited about it. Around 6 p.m., we started our journey. It took us about an hour and a half to reach the campground, which was way out in the countryside. We parked in a lot outside a wooded area and got our tents, snacks, and camping gear. My aunt's husband owns this cool trailer in a big open space in the woods, and that's where we were staying. The trailer is really cool. It's brand new and has a lot of space. There's a living room, a small kitchen, a bathroom, and even 3 bedrooms. The sun shining into the area where it's parked made it perfect for taking some great photos. The first day was easy and fun. Amy and I watched a lot of TV. My aunt took pictures of everything, and we had a tasty dinner thanks to my aunt's cooking skills. On the second day, things took a bad turn. It was a bit cloudy, but at least it wasn't raining. There weren't many animals around, just 1 deer and a couple of birds. I thought there might be a predator nearby. In the evening, we sat by the river, not far from our trailer. My aunt began telling a story, but then we heard sticks breaking and leaves rustling from the other side of the river.
Is that a bear?
Amy asked, sounding a bit scared because she's afraid of bears. I reassured her that the sounds were too light for a bear. It could be a deer or something. Suddenly, from the other side of the river, the scariest scream echoed. My neck hair stood up, and Amy jumped back in fear. The scream was like a mix of human and animal, and it messed with my brain in a way I can't explain. We quickly ran back to the trailer, hearing the scream the whole way. We packed our stuff in a big bag and ran to the car. Once we broke out of the woods, we jumped in, locked the doors, and caught our breath.
Wow, did you hear that?
Amy shouted. We were all confused about the strange noise. We decided to leave and pretend it didn't happen. While we were driving away, my aunt thought it might be a strange animal and suggested we go back in the morning to check. I wasn't really excited about it, but Amy was curious, so we said okay even though we weren't sure what we might find. The next day, we went back to the campground carefully. In the daylight, everything seemed usual, but there was a strange feeling in the air. We wanted to check things out during the day to see if anything odd happened. While we were walking in the woods, my aunt discovered an old torn-up journal on the ground. It looked really old with yellowed pages and worn edges. We couldn't resist our curiosity, so we started reading it. This diary belonged to a person named Samuel, who camped in this place many years ago. He wrote about strange things, like weird sounds and spooky sights. As we kept reading, it felt like we were following Samuel's path. Things got even stranger when we found a deserted campsite deep in the woods. The fire was still a bit warm, and there were new footprints around. It seemed like someone had been there recently, but we couldn't find anyone. As we kept going, we came across an old noisy bridge that took us to the other side of the river, where we heard a scream before. Amy wasn't sure, but my aunt convinced us to cross and see what was there. On the other side, we found a path covered in plants that led to a really old cave. The air near the cave felt thick, and the entrance had weird symbols on it. My aunt, who always likes doing exciting things, said we should go inside and check it out. The cave was really dark. We used our phone flashlights to see where we were going. Way inside, we saw weird drawings on the walls, pictures of strange creatures and symbols that looked like they were from another world. It felt like we had stepped into a secret place. Then we heard a faraway rumbling noise. We got scared and hurried back outside. But when we got there, the entrance to the cave was blocked by big rocks. We felt really scared because we were stuck. We tried pushing the rocks, but they wouldn't move. As we were thinking of how to escape, the noise got louder. The ground shook, and the signs at the cave's entrance started to light up. Suddenly, the rocks blocking the way out moved by themselves, showing a path. We were really scared, so we quickly ran out of the cave, went back over the wobbly bridge, and through the forest. The strange things happening got even more intense as we followed our previous path. We got to the campground and saw my aunt's husband there, looking worried. He told us about a weird thing that happened to him. When he was checking the trailer, he felt something strange and heard whispers in the woods. We all agreed it was time to go, leaving the campground. The ride home was quiet and awkward as we tried to understand what had happened. Even now, we still don't really know what happened, and the memory sticks with us like an unsolved mystery.